Welcome to the. Ugh, fuck. I slur the first thing because I'm
Good
partially
start.
drunk.
Good start.
Welcome to my world.
No, stop. Go down. Damn it. We're recording now. I can't have this shit. All right.
You're being very undue, dog.
Yeah. Oh, fuck you, Bell.
You're being very undue, dude, is
Lay
the
down.
line.
Lay down.
Casual.
Ugh. Lay down.
All right. No, that's not okay. I am
All
no Big Lebowski casual.
All right, turn your mics off, you fuckers. Welcome to another episode of the Superhero Movie Club, a community of superhero movie fans. All nerds welcome, but please wipe your feet at the door. I'm your comic book cultured host, Michael Maurer, joined by the movie maestro
James Schuyler Hutzma.
and the scientific scholar
Ben Anderson.
and special guest returning for the second time. Twitter Tom is here.
Yay, yay.
SHMC is your premier movie discussion podcast. Every week, we continue our journey exploring our favorite subject, superhero movies. Every fan sees the movies differently, so we gather some amateur experts. Every fan sees the movies differently, so we gather some amateur experts to discuss certain aspects of the movie.
Whether it's money, comic books, music, or science, SHMC talks about it all in this week's episode, Iron Man. And yes, there will be spoilers.
All right, so let's start with some first opinions around the board. I want to get Twitter Tom's opinion. Tell me, Twitter Tom, what did you think of Iron Man 1?
I love this movie. And I think for as much problems it had through development, that it really shined, and everything about the Robert Downey Jr., the casting, everything, I thought it was just an ace in the hole for Marvel, and this movie really set it up for the rest of the MCU. It's one of my favorites of the whole MCU out there.
Perfect. And how about you, Skylar?
All right. I view Iron Man as the other side of the coin of 2008 when superhero movies really kind of came into their own. One side's Dark Knight, which shows that superhero movies can be dramatic, have weight to them, and be, just heavy-hitting films themselves. Iron Man, as I see as the side where the genre itself can be fun, poppy, quality, have some message to it as well, but then also just fine-tune its entertainment value, because the first Iron Man is nothing if not very entertaining. And I still consider it at least among the top, let's say, 4 of the MCU to this day. It's just a lot of fun.
And Ben, are you going to be our dissenter, or are you going to finally agree with everyone here?
I actually do agree with everyone here. If Iron Man were a Beyoncé single, it would be Crazy in Love.
That's good.
Yeah, and that's really all I have to say. If you don't understand the metaphor, then go listen to Crazy in Love and think about like what that song represents. Like you hear that song and you're like, oh man, this song's really good. Beyonce's going to be huge.
Iron Man 1 was the first breakout. It was back when the MCU method was cool, when you could have a breakout origin story mixed with a not so prevalent villain. It's very easily that the villain, there's no ambiguity. Obadiah Stane is very evil in this movie, but at the same time, like having a really core and rich origin story that really brings us and really makes us feel for the character. I don't know what it takes to put your finger on it, but there's something that brings Iron Man 1 all together into this cohesive, fantastic film. And it's easily one of the best of the MCU, but I really don't have a specific reason why other than everything about it, really. And let's talk about how it was a breakout financial hit. Hit me with some stats on the money, Sky Guy.
Okay, so Iron Man made for a modest budget of $140 million. That's back in 2008, so a little bit of inflation here and there. Who cares? Made much more than that. Domestic gross sits at $318.4 million, so that's much higher than the quote-unquote analyst experts were expecting it to do.
That's super high for domestic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you add in the $266.8 million for its foreign gross, the entire worldwide gross is $585.1 million. So, verified international blockbuster. Still sits in the top 10 for 2008. Big surprise. I'm sure everyone at Marvel was thrilled at what this movie brought in.
Yeah, I mean, this was the beginning of the new era that we're in right now of just constant superhero movies. And because this was so successful, because this had a clearly pertained formula, you could follow the plot points of this film and sort of honestly, this is the one of it holds the novelty of being the first to use the MCU method, and it still holds maybe the best performance. Arguably, I would say Guardians might have done it better, but that's opinionated. But still, this this movie brought in the bucks. It put people in the seats. It put my butt in the seat, and this is the first taste of like, whoa, is there a bigger universe out there? Are they gonna? It develops this whole new method of world expanding in film, and of course, the more people feel involved with the film, the more money they're going to spend to continue being involved with it.
Consider this as well. This movie was the summer opener of 2008. It blew movies like Speed Racer, Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian, both of which opened the same month as it, out of the water. The year before this, superhero movies consisted of Ghost Rider, Spider-Man 3, and Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. So people were itching for a good superhero movie due to the fact that there really wasn't one for at least a year. And this one really delivered, and I think that contributed to just how great it turned out.
Yeah, and it was Iron Man, too. Who the hell knew about Iron Man before 2008? Barely even me.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah. I was going to say Black Sabbath song, but thank
he
you.
He actually is Iron Man, if you listen to his song carefully.
Oh, introspective.
I believe it.
All right, so we're going to go next up into the comic book section and talking about the storyline as well as characters that were introduced in this film. And as far as story goes, this is who wrote this? Anybody remember?
It was
the outline or the
guy
book?
Who wrote Children of Men?
Okay. A man needs a
Couldn't tell
name.
you their names though.
Wait, who wrote this movie, you're asking?
Yeah. Just help me. I'm
Mark
segueing.
Fergus, Hawk Ostby, Art Markham, Matt Holloway. All people we have never heard of.
Okay.
And haven't heard of since.
Oh my God, 4 people. All right. Well, anyway. So this movie was written by a group of writers who are just apparently very unknown, and just 4 guys. Yeah, Mark Fergus, Hawk Osleby, Arthur Markham, and Matthew Holloway. And the story is very much came out of the Iron Man first appearance in Tales of Suspense number 39 back in 1963, where he's put into a cave and he's forced to make that hunky, junky Iron Man suit and get himself out of that cave in order to quit making weapons and become this industrialist who likes to put suits on and shoot baddies. And that's honestly shoe in a MacGuffin of Obadiah Stane, and you have the Iron Man film, and also modernize it to the Middle East instead of in Vietnam, is where it originally was, because that comic book came out in 1963. But characters that premiered in this were Nick Fury-ish. I'm not going to count that one because I think we can talk about Nick Fury when we get to the David Hasselhoff TV film, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. from 1998. It's going to be fun.
Oh, boy.
And that was written by David Goyer, by the way. That's the Dark Knight writer. So that TV movie is a rich piece of history. It's very hard to find nowadays, actually, but it's still out there. Next up, this is the first premiere we get of Agent Coulson. And Agent Coulson premiered in this movie, as far as to my knowledge, and the people at Marvel loved Clark Gregg so much to like keep putting this guy in films. He is a charming son of a bitch. And give him a TV show. Just they kept throwing stuff at Clark Gregg to do, and he's like, all right, sounds good. But this is the first time you actually get to see him. Sorry, were you going to say something?
That wasn't the plan for Phil Coulson. Like, they put him in the movie to have a few lines, but the whole cast ended up loving him, so they gave him more lines, and it spawned into his whole character after this.
Clark Gregg, you have risen from Lifetime movie fame to this wonderful world of geekdom. Congratulations on your success. Next character is Howard Stark Jr. Is somebody going to say something? Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say
I was just going to say on the topic of Clark Gregg, big leap from The New Adventures of Old Christine.
Oh, he was great in that show. He was. The next character I have on the list is Howard Stark Jr., and this character was created by R.G. Goodwin and Don Heck in 1970, and he's very similar to the movie, in that the movie they don't touch on him, really. He's just shown in some slideshows, and this isn't really the first time you get to see him fleshed out, but it's the same thing that they did in the comic book where he's died in a car accident. He was stern to his child, and the car accident is ambiguous, so you get to fill in the blanks wherever you want. I don't think the comic books have even taken advantage of who actually killed Howard Stark, or if it was still an accident. And the movie gets to do that too, of just like, was it really an accident, or did Hydra kill him? And all that good fun goodiness. Next up I have Ho Yinsen. There's a lot of characters in this, just a heads up, because it is an origin story and everybody's fresh, and this was the start of a new era. One sec. Bell, stop it. Don't get to chew on that crap, dumb dog. Alright. Next character I have is Ho Yinsen, and he came on Tales of Suspense number 39. That is the, of course, Iron Man premiere, created by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and Don Heck, the Iron Man creators, back in 1963. And he is the character, of course, best known for being Tony Stark's best buddy in that cave and building that magnetic chest plate that keeps the shrapnel away from Tony's heart. And while in the movie they kind of made it more of Tony's idea so that they could build on it, in the comic books it was mostly Ho Yinsen. And what happened was instead of Tony getting blown up in a convoy, in the comic book a landmine goes off, and then Ho Yinsen makes this magnetic plate. I think in the movie they just have the arc reactor power the magnet that keeps the metal away from his heart, which is kind of fun if you don't understand arc reactor technology, because no one does. There's this also, if you want to know more about Ho Yinsen, there's this Sons of Yinsen story where they expand a bit more on his life. Next up we have Happy Hogan, played by director Jon Favreau, and he premiered in Tales of Suspense number 45, so not too long after the inception, still with the duo of Stan Lee and Don Heck, who are the godfathers, of course, of Iron Man. And Happy Hogan's a fun character because he's just this guy who had a failed boxing career. He saved Tony's life, and of course that made them best friends. What's interesting is in the comic books he actually married Pepper Potts, and later they got divorced. And then later Happy dies in the Civil War event story, which, hint hint, wink wink, we might get to see in the movie. That'd be pretty fun to see Jon Favreau die on screen. Oh, we almost got it in Iron Man 3, but that's how I really got on Happy Hogan. Oh, he divorces Pepper later because, of course, the comic books have to give Tony and Pepper that nice erotic tension. Feel free to. I know I told you guys to keep your mics off, but if you think I've been talking too long, feel free to interject with something because it makes the whole podcast thing more dynamic. I realize my mistake of telling you to keep your mics off the whole time. But
I've
anyway,
got something on Obadiah Stane, so don't worry.
okay, thank you. Also, Skylar, I know I told you you can use the Switch. I'm taking that back because I'm now using the button too because the Switch gets picked up pretty obnoxiously. It's like a big click sound.
Yeah,
Giant.
I hear
Oh,
it in
so
my
Yeah.
earphones.
So I'm pressing the button too. So just press the button instead of using the
okay,
Switch.
so the one through Google here.
Yeah, the one on top.
Okay.
So next up we
Sounds
have.
good.
Yep, okay. Next up we have Obadiah Stane, of course, Ironmonger in the movie. I don't think they ever called him Ironmonger in the film. We all just took that for granted. And Stane was made in. Hold on.
I just ripped ass. I hope everyone heard it.
Woo! Stane was made in 1982 by Denny O'Neil and Luke McDonnell. Denny O'Neil of course, Batman fame and Green Lantern and Green Arrow Road Warriors fame. And it wasn't until 1985 that Obadiah Stane actually got into the suit of Ironmonger. Before that, for 3 years, he was just this business Mongol. He had no real friendly relations with the Starks like they have in the film. All he did was just take over the Stark business and push Tony into this world of alcoholism. Sorry, this dog's chewing on the chair right now, and it's really annoying. And he is described as a master of manipulation, and of course he's one of the first of many villains to put on a suit, challenge Iron Man, and it's a suit v suit battle because that's the only way you can fight Iron Man apparently, is to have a super suit of your own. The only fun little fact I have on him is just that he has this weird obsession with chess. And in the movie, they touch on that a little bit. And when Tony's flying in to target him, he asks Jarvis, like, how is that chess piece going to hold up? Asking about the suit. And I don't know if Favreau really is good at putting these little hints and winks into the movie, but that one was pretty deep cut. Already had something on Obadiah?
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed.
Go ahead, Skylar.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm kind of bummed because quite recently we got a bunch of issues of Iron Man right around the time but Obadiah Stane became popular into the bookstore I work at. A lot of Tony losing his company and whatnot. But we did have an issue where the issue come in where Iron Man and Ironmonger fight for the final time, and Ironmonger opts to just kill himself at the end. That came in, and I'm kind of bummed I didn't pick it up because I've heard it's a good one.
Holy cow, he kills himself.
He does. He takes his repulsor right to his head.
That's pretty freaking metal. Did you have something you want to say, Tom?
Appropriate enough.
Oh yeah, what I was going to say is the only time they ever mention Ironmonger in the movie is when Obadiah Stane looks at Tony and says, hey, we're Ironmongers. This is what we do. Other than that, they never reference, Jeff Bridges as Ironmonger.
Interesting. Good to know. I was actually curious when I first started the movie because apparently all the news people are like, the villain is Ironmonger, and I'm like, they didn't say that at all in the film. I thought it was just Stane in the suit. I didn't know enough about Iron Man comics then. I was a wee little lad. Next up we have Edwin Jarvis, or in the movie, of course, Jarvis, but an acronym, and he premiered in Tales of Suspense number 59. In 1964, of course, the Lee and Heck duo, and he is, of course, the Stark butler. He's very similar to Alfred Pennyworth of Batman universe in that he's a World War II veteran, and he's got this history as a boxing champion. And Also, a fun little tidbit is Edwin Jarvis, the Butler, is the longest unofficial Avenger. He's the only one to be there since day one of Avengers and have been there the whole time. And he's not even an honorary Avenger. He's still just the housekeeper. But now he's retconned into, of course, not a real human being anymore. He's retconned into Pepper Potts' AI for her rescue suit. And it has, apparently Jarvis, the AI, has a little crush on Pepper, and it's yeah. The comics have a lot of fun doing squeezing in the movie bits, while at the same time making them their own. So that's Jarvis doesn't turn into Vision in the comics. Vision's this whole different thing too, in case you were wondering.
Fun fact about Jarvis: there was an episode where, due to Tony's rampant alcoholism, he resigns, and in the comic he hands over his letter of resignation, and the text for that letter is actually the actual letter of resignation for one of the artists who was working on Iron Man at the time.
Yeah, it was the term, yeah. That's pretty freaking funny, actually. They're like, oh, this guy's leaving. Let's just put his stuff in the comic book. Next, I have James Rhodey Rhodes, aka War Machine. Ugh. Bell, shh, no barking. And he was made, of course, by Lee and Heck again. No, he wasn't. I take that back. He was made by David Michelini and Bob Layton in the comic book Iron Man 118 in 1979. And he is the second person to take up the Iron Man mantle, of course, during Tony's very famous Demon in a Bottle storyline, where he becomes an alcoholic and Obadiah Stane takes over his whole entire company, and Rhodey has to take over as the new Iron Man. And ever since then, Rhodey is always involved in Iron Man stories in one way or another. He is the side character that is just always there. He is Tony's concerned best friend. He is one of the most respected people in Tony's life. And it's just he's shown up in the Marvel Universe at different points. And it's just Rhodey, man. He's just this concerned Air Force pilot. He hasn't had a big breakout story of his own, which is weird. He's always just been a supplemental character to everyone else.
Question.
And the movies have done that too. Yeah.
Who do we prefer, Terrence Howard or Don Cheadle?
Don Cheadle.
I don't know who either of those people are.
They're the Rhodey's, man. They're the two actors who played Rhodey.
Okay, well, I don't know which one's which, so.
Well, Terrence Howard played played in Rhodey in the first one, and I don't know if it's a. Don Cheadle manages to adapt the Marvel atmosphere a lot better than Terrence Howard does, in that Don Cheadle's a bit more comedic. He's a bit more savvy in his lines, where Terrence Howard, I could actually feel the concern for Tony, for Terrence, because he's really good at emoting as an actor. And with Don, it's a lot less concern and just more witty best friend.
I think
which
that's
one's
fair.
in Iron Man 3?
Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle. Also in the Avengers.
Well, whichever one's in Iron Man 3, I prefer that one.
Cool.
What I find interesting is the fact that Terrence Howard was the first person cast, and he actually made more money off this than Robert Downey Jr. did, which is funny saying now, because you hear these news stories about how Downey Jr. makes $50 million for an Iron Man film, and it's just unbelievable to think that.
Yeah, it's like 4 times more than any other cast member. The next character I have that has premiered is Pepper Potts, or Virginia Pepper Potts, and she came in Tales of Suspense number 45, same as Happy Hogan, 1963, and she is modeled after actress Ann B. Davis's character on the Bob Cummings Show. For all of you really deep comic book history nuts out there, is that most comic book characters are, well, a lot of comic book characters are modeled after celebrities, and I don't know who Ann B. Davis is, but Google that stuff, see what's the what. And she served as just this love triangle character at the beginning. She was infatuated with Tony. Happy was infatuated with her, and Tony was off trying to woo a bunch of floozies. Eventually, she marries Happy, and then Happy dies, and she goes back to working for Tony. And then she gets injured in an event with Obadiah Stane's son, Ezekiel Stane, and that creates a similar injury to what Tony had, in that there's shrapnel in her chest, and they need to put a magnet in there to keep the shrapnel from killing her, which is, wow, comics, you're getting too ironic a little bit. But there's, hmm?
Ann B. Davis was the housekeeper on the Brady Bunch.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, that's pretty cool. All of our fans who were born in 1960 are probably like, "You're an idiot," but thank you. And finally, we have Iron Man, and this is the first time we see Iron Man. And I mean, I'm not going to describe to you Iron Man's facts and histories because the movie does a pretty good job of explaining them. And honestly, go read some Iron Man comics. But what I am going to say about Iron Man is what he was made to represent, and that Stan Lee wanted to create this character, and who transforms into this personification of the military industrial complex if it had a bad boy superhero. And he's a character that deals with the complexities of war and weapons in the modern era. So back then it was commentary on the Vietnam War and what an industrialist has to do to be accountable for that. And damn it, lost my train of thought. So, and have all this technology, but nowadays it's of course a commentary on our conflict in the Middle East, because Iron Man has this superb technology, the most precise technology in the world, and it shows that nobody but the bad guys have to get hurt. It declares who the bad guys are pretty plainly, and then he takes them out with precision, with no civilian casualties. Like in that scene where he invades the Middle East, and you see him targeting all of the people who have hostages, and he just takes each of them out, no problem. And it's a powerful hero to look up to, and just like that's what we wish our American military could be, and that's what he's supposed to sort of represent, is this industrialist who is the peak of military accomplishment, while at the same time being snarky and cute.
Question. Is Iron Man only informally based off Howard Hawks, or has Stan Lee gone on record saying that was a big influence for the character?
I'm going to have Twitter Tom
answer that one. I was going to get into that, Skyler, about
nice.
Howard Hughes.
Hughes, okay, yeah. Hawks was the filmmaker. Hughes is the other
Hughes
guy.
was the filmmaker.
Yep. So I don't know if you want me to go into it now, or you want me to wait until...
Yeah, we'll cover that.
Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Just say something where you'll say you'll cover it later, so I can edit that in.
We'll get to that later, Skyler. Don't you worry.
Perfect. All right. Well, how about now, Skyler, we just get to you and have you talk about music. And I'm sorry, Skyler, I went a little long on the comic book side. So if you could ad-lib for me, and if there's one track you can get rid of, please do that. Otherwise, if you can't, just go with all 5. Go for it.
All right. I apologize at the front here, but I'm going to need about 30 seconds to go grab my charger because I'm running low on battery, and then when I get back, we shall do the thing.
Ooh, plan ahead.
I'm going to go pee while he does that.
All right. Mild break in the middle of the fucking show, everybody. That's okay. It's an easy edit.
Yeah. Skyler's only gone because he's a big... He's a little bee with a little P.
Shh, bitch, don't talk. Just don't talk. I know to edit it if there's no sound.
All right, crisis averted. We're good to go when everyone else is.
Yeah, we're just waiting on Tom and Ben again. I don't know where. Oh, Ben's here. He just popped up like a popcorn.
I had to
Okay.
pet my cat, or rather, my girlfriend's cat.
So you had to pet your girlfriend's pussy, is what you're saying.
Don't ever talk about my girlfriend that way, or I will fuck you up.
Sure you will.
No, this cat has literally just been staring at me for the past half hour.
Now, every time you say cat, I'm going to take that out of context. Pretty hardcore. Sorry, buddy.
You
Just because you,
mouth made me fuck her.
you had to say pet your girlfriend's cat.
Don't fuck off, man.
No, you invited that one.
All right, go ahead, Skylar.
All right. Okay. My turn now. Music of Iron Man 3 is done by a fellow named Raymond Jowdy. He'll be one of 3 different composers to tackle the Iron Man franchise, the first, obviously. Before this movie, he was just kind of known as the guy who made the music to the TV show Prison Break. This was his real film breakthrough. After this, he'd go on to do movies like Clash of the Titans,
Pacific Rim,
Dracula Untold, Game, and probably his biggest thing since then has been the theme to Game of Thrones. And I think he's done the music for most of the episodes too, so good for him. This was
he's a very exciting composer. I'm sorry, we all know who this guy is.
Exactly. He's and this was really his launching point. So let's take a listen to what he came up with for the sound of Iron Man with the first track of the album, Driving with the Top Down. All right, and if you couldn't hear that just from the clip, Jowdy has gone on record saying that a lot of his themes for the movie are meant to sound very machine-like, rhythmic, very orderly, in order to bring out the sound of Iron Man. I think on our last Iron Man podcast for Iron Man 2, I mentioned that Rage Against the Machine's Tom Morello joined in on it, and I just found out, again, he contributed to this soundtrack as well. So let's take a listen to the track Merchant of Death, which, as it turns out, would eventually become known as that car commercial song that they use to make their cars sound badass.
Hot damn, this soundtrack has some sick guitar riffs. My God.
If you read the YouTube comments for this, like the second one down, at least when I was listening to it the other day, the second one down calls Raymond, however you pronounce his name, he calls me a Tom Morello wannabe, ironically enough.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It just says Rage Against the Machine wannabe.
Yeah,
and someone answered, well, he worked with Tom Morello, so he's probably doing it right.
Yeah,
Oh.
before you leave... stupid YouTube comments. Do your research, you fucks.
Oh no, we're here to inform you. So, listen to our podcast and then comment on YouTube.
Exactly. No, this soundtrack is just so much fun in that it's just a simple pleasure in how every other track is just some cool new rhythmic theme that you can just throw on, get stuff done to, kind of like what you were saying last week with Incredible Hulk, in that it's music to get stuff done to. And that's especially true with the next track, which is Mark II.
Am I correct in saying there's a hint of the Iron Man overall theme in the middle of that? The
Yeah.
do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah, you'll hear that pop up a few times throughout the movie, and I think it's well done enough to be like, hey, you're keeping it consistent with this. Jowdy's actually gone on the record as saying that his themes for this movie aren't so much character-based, but rather plot-based, at what point in the story we're at, and at what point this theme becomes more prevalent than the other one.
I have to ask, Skylar, are we going to get a clip of a song that started the trend of the metal clanging sound as a beat?
It's very possible. I can't remember right off now, but I do believe...
That would be, I believe, The Ring of the Nibelung, the opera cycle by Richard Wagner, made a very prominent use of anvil.
Wagner is where it all started. Wagner is where John Williams started, so...
Yeah,
because for what it's worth.
I know we've talked about this before. That's like a Marvel thing that started with Iron Man and continued through Thor, and just like that whole just like the clang sound used as a beat of just metal on metal, bang.
Yeah, listen.
Das Rheingold.
Right.
Das Rheingold is the name of the opera I was trying to think of.
Listen for it in the last track I've got on the docket here. But first, let's take a quick listen to the track Gulmira, which may have that certain sound pop up.
I know we might be digging deep into our knowledge here, but if someone were to play that track and ask me, "All right, Michael, you're sure so smart about your Marvel movies, you dummy. Which Iron Man movie is that track from?" You would have caught me. I would have definitely said Iron Man 2.
Really?
Oh yeah, that feels very much like Iron Man 2 sound.
I agree.
Well, it's a good thing that there's overlap between the two, but yeah, I could see it.
See, the thing about Iron Man 1, this soundtrack is, like, for me, it's like, that's Iron Man 1. Like, Iron Man 2 and 3, I couldn't really tell you, or I couldn't even tell any song that's from it. I couldn't even tell you how it goes. Like, that's what I like about the Iron Man 1 soundtrack, is like, that's from Iron Man 1.
Well, if I may, I think a lot of Ridwan, I hate trying to pronounce this guy's name because I butcher it. Iwajami, I don't know.
Just say Raymond.
Yeah, Raymond. A lot of Raymond sounds. The electric guitar is very very prevalent. In Iron Man 2, you get a lot of the mix between the electric and the bass guitar, and the drums come in, and there's heavier beats. In Iron Man 3, for some reason, everything gets a little bit lifted upwards. And so with that track, Golmira, it was a lot of that Iron Man 2 mesh of just electric bass and heavy heavy downbeats.
I think there's a general trend throughout the three movies. Um, Iron Man 1 is a lot of rock band instruments, and then as they go forward, they become more symphonic. Because by the time you get to Iron Man 3, the theme is almost completely done by the orchestra. Whereas with this one, just guitar, bass, drums. To answer your question, though, before, the inception of, the anvil clang can be found in the track Mark 1, which we don't have time for today, unfortunately, but that is actually a music track where it lines up with the movie. When Tony is making his suit, he clangs down on the thing, and the downbeats with the anvil and his, steel forging are exactly the same. That is where that started.
Wonderful. Okay.
Let's take a look. All right. Unless we have further questions, let's take a listen to the final track, which is Arc Reactor, spelled in a really derpy way, but it's from the finale of the movie, and it's pretty BA.
That is definitely boss battle music.
For sure. Funny enough story, I was originally going to include the track Ironmonger, which has the theme for, you guessed it, the Ironmonger, but this movie actually pulled a similar thing as Dark Knight, where the music for when Iron Man and Ironmonger are first fighting on the highway there's no music, and there was originally some written for it, but it ultimately didn't end up getting used.
All right. Well, I think that's going to have to wrap it up for music today, and we are going to move right on to the science section of SHMC. So, Ben, how you doing over there, buddy?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. One of the last person left in Mankato. So tell me, Ben, yeah?
Am I in Mankato right now? Do you know that for sure?
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're not in Mankato, which is great. We
Yeah.
are all on the road. So tell me,
Yeah.
which topic would you like to start with first? Do you have an order, or would you just like me to fire them at you?
Someone in the outline wrote, "How longs is cardiac arrest?"
That was me. I wrote in the outline because I watched.
And I don't understand the question at all.
Well, I watched the movie, and there's, of course, the scene where Obadiah Stane takes the arc reactor out of Tony, and Tony describes this as going into... Ben, please mute your mic. You're coming in echo when I'm talking. I'm sorry. And Tony describes that when the arc reactor is taken out of him, he goes into cardiac arrest. So I'm wondering, because in the movie, he has enough time to go into cardiac arrest, go downstairs, get his other arc reactor, and shove that in himself by himself. So I'm wondering, how long is actual cardiac arrest?
If you're actually in cardiac arrest, you're not going to be able to get up and walk around. I guarantee it. I challenge our listeners. Go into cardiac arrest, try to walk down a flight of stairs.
The weekly
It's not gonna
challenge. The weekly challenge.
The weekly challenge, yeah. Stop your heart, walk downstairs, and lift like a 5-pound weight. You're not going to do it. So
SHMC holds no legal liability for you going into cardiac arrest.
yeah,
We do
don't.
not
It's bad
condone
advice.
any self-induced cardiac arrest. We do not condone that.
Yes, just
I-
for our legal team.
I will talk, however, for a little bit about what's called the Rule of Four, and when it's like a general guide for wilderness survival, and basically it says that you can go for 4 weeks without food. You can go for 4 days, like before you have to like really start worrying about dying. You can go for 4 weeks without food. You can go for 4 days without water, 4 hours without warmth, and 4 minutes without oxygen, like without air. So if you go into cardiac arrest, you have about 4 minutes to get out of it before you really have to start worrying about actually being dead.
All right. So
So
next, I want to ask about the arc reactor technology, and can you, in your abundance of knowledge, try and bring that into the real world a little bit?
So I always understood the arc reactor as just being a nuclear fusion generator thing, I guess, is how I always interpreted it. Is that accurate, as far as you know?
I honestly, like, they describe it in the movie as this clean energy source that is not energy efficient when it's in its giant form in the laboratory, but is very extremely energy efficient when it's turned into a very small thing that you can put inside of your chest. Because
And
as
you can also
Obadiah,
make it into like a bomb or a weapon or something, right?
yeah,
Okay.
because that's what it powers
So I'm just
repulsors.
so I'm just gonna talk about nuclear fusion. So I think we've talked about nuclear fission before, but so that works by taking two very heavy atoms, smashing them together, breaking them apart, and there's a release of energy. Fusion is kind of the opposite in that it takes two really light particles and combines them together into a bigger one, which is accompanied by a release of energy. And
So
the goal is, yeah.
Well, because if I had to guess, the arc reactor looks like a very miniature hadron collider. So I would
Yeah.
assume that he's constantly exploding atoms in there, creating, of course, excess energy that he's using to power this suit so cleanly. And it's an unlimited energy supply because he continues to spin atoms, which continue to hit each other and explode and get smaller. But it's a weird chain reaction that's contained fictionally, because that's not how it works.
Right, yeah. So the big problem with nuclear fusion in the real world is that to have energies high enough where you can get, for example, two hydrogen atoms to fuse together into a helium atom, you have to heat it up so hot that you're putting more energy into making this reaction happen than you get out of it. So the goal is to get it to occur at a cooler temperature. And that's something that physicists are spending a lot of time working on, because if you could do this, it would be, like the arc reactor, a source of clean, basically unlimited energy.
That's
So,
actually pretty awesome that the Iron Man suit is already this hypothesized real world thing that could happen. And I see you don't really have a full answer for repulsors. I was just going to ask if you know what the hell that is.
not really.
Yeah, it's just this weird energy source that just shoots a laser and it pushes you back non-lethally.
Yeah, I don't know how to work. I couldn't be bothered to bullshit an explanation for that.
Some sort of concussive blast. And finally, I want to talk about what is the probability of getting a metal suit to fly? Because I mean, have we invented jetpacks yet? Even?
We kind of have jetpacks. We have things that basically they work in water, and what they do is they suck up water through a big ass tube and then shoot it up the back of this jetpack thing, and you can like float above the water. And you can find videos of this on YouTube. It's pretty cool.
That's super
The
dope.
thing with the problem with building a jetpack is that like getting a person up in the air, that's pretty easy. Having them land without shattering their kneecaps and just like having their legs rip through the like all the way through their butt and whatever. That is much harder to get people to land safely.
That's way easier. That's a way easier thing to do, of course. You just have them land, because in the movies, that's all they do. They just land.
Right, but in real life, getting someone to land, like hit the ground at 40 miles an hour without shattering every bone in their body, that's the challenge.
Oh.
Jetpacks are easy to build, like shin guards to keep your shin from in one piece when you hit the ground. That's hard.
Yeah, that's hard. That's the actual problem of jetpacks. I think that's actually really cool that we've actually invented jetpacks, but nobody can use them without dying. They're like a one-time use thing, like Lethal Weapon 4. And any other science you want to talk about, Ben?
No, not really.
I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff that kind of happens in Iron Man.
Yeah.
He builds a
Well,
suit.
we've talked about artificial intelligence before, right? For Avengers 2, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vision is when artificial intelligence, and Ultron, because of
Yeah.
course that was when it became a major plot point.
Yeah. So Jarvis is an artificial intelligence, but we've talked about those before, so I'm not gonna go on about that.
Quick pause. Bell's being a piece of shit. Bell, hey, knock that off. All right? You want to lay down up here? That's fine. You can do that. Don't keep biting shit, you dumb piece of crap. All right, where's my stuff? Oh, I'm loving how much we're derailing the podcast tonight. It's pretty awesome. But at the same time, energy's high. Why? Because Twitter Tom is here, and he's always a joy to have. So now that
I
was
said much.
well, now it is your time to shine, Twitter Tom. So tell me, give me some fun facts, because
All right.
God bless your soul.
All right, here's some fun facts from Iron Man. What Skylar was saying about Tom Morello. This is a fun fact that I just watched this movie yesterday, and I realized this. Tom Morello, he was of Rage Against the Machine. And the only time you see him in this movie is about 5 seconds right before Tony Stark puts on the Mark I armor and bitch slaps him across the cave and kills him. So I
Oh
thought
my
it was
God,
ironic.
he played a terrorist?
Yeah, he was a terrorist in this movie. And the only time he's in there is he has the gun and he goes up to the door and Iron Man comes out and he bitch slaps him across the cave. So I just thought it was ironic that he's in a band called Rage Against the Machine and he was killed by a machine.
Killing in the name of.
Yeah, killing in the name, exactly. I thought that was a little ironic. What else I found out was that the script, when they made this movie, the script was unfinished. So they started filming without a full content script. So a lot of the dialogue was improvised. Robert Downey Jr. made up a lot of his lines on the spot, and Gwyneth Paltrow had a hard time making stuff up on the spot. So she wasn't sure what Robert Downey Jr. was going to say. So a lot of her stuff had to be redone because she wasn't sure how to handle. She didn't know what was going to be said, so she didn't know how to react to it.
Oh my gosh! And so of course we get the nice coyness.
Right, and it goes. What to say is Jeff Bridges. He's a guy that would study the script. Every movie he's in, he would study the script so he would know it backwards and forwards. So he went in not sure what to do, and so as soon as he told himself this was a $150 or $150 million student film, have fun with it, he kind of just rolled with it because he kind of had OCD, and him not knowing what was supposed to be said or what to do, it kind of made him uncomfortable.
That'll happen when you're next to RDJ. He's too good at that.
Right. Another one I have is Jarvis. What that stands for is just a rather very intelligent system. And it's based off Tony Stark's dad, Howard Stark, his butler was named Jarvis, which you touched upon earlier.
Well, yeah, and we actually get to see real life Jarvis, air quotations, in the show Agent Carter, where
exactly.
he's played by James Darcy, I think is his name.
Right. And the Rhodey's ringtone when Tony Stark is going against the fighter jets that are ironically named Whiplash 1 and 2, who was the villain in the second one.
That's pretty good.
He calls Rhodey, and Rhodey's ringtone is the Iron Man animated cartoons theme song. That's what his ringtone is.
I'm gonna play that at the end, maybe. No, I'll play the Iron Man, the AC/DC song instead. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I did put a note in there.
It's an Ozzy Osbourne song, you fuck.
I will.
Anyway, I put a note in there too that the old '60s Iron Man cartoon theme also shows up in the casino scene, because you have the awards gala. Rhodey says something like, "Think about Tony. He's always working." Switches over to the casino scene. Big band version of that theme.
Right, it's like a smooth jazz version of the Iron Man cartoon song.
Man, Jon Favreau and Kevin Feige were just on top of Easter eggs. Everything in this movie was just so subtle, and now it's so blatantly obvious when they reference something.
What else I got is Jarvis. They were gonna make him because he was a butler in the comics, but since Dark Knight and Batman Begins was so prevalent that they already had an Alfred. They didn't want to feel like they were encroaching upon the Alfred Bruce Wayne dynamic, so they made him an AI. And in my opinion, that worked out great.
Genius idea.
Another one, getting back to you, Skylar, earlier, was that Stan Lee based Tony Stark off Howard Hughes. And what he said was he wanted to get an inventor, an adventurer, a multimillionaire, a ladies' man, and overall a nutcase. And that sums up Tony Stark to a T.
And Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, exactly. And doing some research on this movie, and what I found is this movie is sort of an allegory for Robert Downey Jr.'s life. And how this goes is when Robert Downey Jr. was a movie star, and then he got into drugs really bad. And if you look at his autobiography, he said before he got clean, the last thing he was sitting in his car, he was eating Burger King, and realized, what the heck am I doing with my life? He threw the Burger King away, and then he started on a road of getting clean. So if you look at this movie, he starts off, he's king of the world. He's selling these warheads to these other companies, getting rich, blah blah blah, and then he hits rock bottom. And right before he launches into this new way of thinking, the last thing he wants before he distances himself between him selling these warheads for not for good, for evil, he wants a Burger King cheeseburger. It's ironic that he wants an American cheeseburger and it's from Burger King. So he eats his Burger King cheeseburger, and then he announces that he's going to go on a peaceful path. So he goes on his peaceful fast, and he rises, and then at the end, he says, "I am Iron Man." That's his last words of this movie. And this is maybe me digging a little deep, but he says, "I am Iron Man." And now, if you look at Robert Downey Jr., what do you think? He's Iron Man. And, well, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, too. But he's Iron Man.
Yeah.
So I thought it was, I may be digging a little bit deep here, but I just thought the coincidences, validated. At least we're talking about it. And if you guys disagree, that is totally okay. But that's something I noticed.
I do recall after this movie, the movie effectively did make me want to go grab Burger King.
For the first time in a long time, because you actually forgot
Yes.
about Burger King existing.
Right.
All right, what's next?
I got this movie. It was actually in what they call development hell. They started talking about making a movie about Iron Man since 1990.
Thank God they didn't do it then.
Oh, I agree totally. So at one point, Nicolas Cage was attached to star, and then it reverted to Tom Cruise, who was going to finance it and star in it. And then it got passed on to a bunch of directors, Quentin Tarantino being one, Joss Whedon being one, which they all passed on. And it was going to go to New Line Cinema. It was going to go to Universal, to Fox, and
Man, what could have been? I know in the commentary, Favreau mentioned that he was actually planning to have Sam Rockwell play Robert Downey, or play, oh my gosh, play Tony Stark in the movie, and eventually went with Robert Downey Jr.
And didn't Sam Rockwell end up playing Justin Hammer?
Oh yeah, Favreau has his favorites, puts him in his movies, and RDJ is definitely a favorite.
So this movie was in development hell since 1990, and then finally the rights reverted back to Marvel in 2004. So even with it reverting back to Marvel in 2004, they still had 4 years to get this movie up off the ground. Which is kind of, if you think about it, like the cards are stacked against this movie. It took 4 years to get off the ground. If this movie would have bombed, the history of movies as we know it, I think, would be totally shifted. It would be totally, we would not know a connected universe.
Well, Warner Brothers would be on top. Warner Brothers would be on top.
Oh yeah, well definitely, but think about it. Man of Steel didn't come out to 2013.
Yeah,
so that was 6 years later.
Yeah, it's fun to speculate what could have been. But I'm really focused on this little fun fact you hear and that you wrote down, that the Iron Man prop suit weighed 90 pounds.
Yes. And I actually had it before. I deleted it, but then I put it back on. Is because, or I looked into it more. This was Stan Winston's last film before he died. If anybody knows Stan Winston, he was the guy who did all the animatronics. He did a lot of prosthetics, real, the movie magic. So
yeah.
90 pounds for this suit. And
how do you move that thing?
Right, Robert Downey Jr.
That's
had
only
stuntmen wear this suit because, I mean, he just couldn't handle 90 pounds to move around in it. So yeah, I thought that was they blew my mind as well, Mauer, that the suit weighed 90 pounds, and that was just, I mean, a lot of it's CG, but man,
I don't recall if it was the first Iron Man movie, a couple of the other ones, or the Avengers movie, but Robert Downey Jr. talked quickly about how if he was going to fall, he had to fall a certain way, otherwise that prop suit would break his legs.
Oh yeah,
I remember not having a good day.
Yeah, that was a big
that.
Entertainment Weekly article that was pretty famous because of that.
I just want to add, a 90-pound suit of armor is it's about the same as what knights would wear during jousting tournaments.
Oh really? I suppose.
Yeah, so the Iron Man, the prop Iron Man suit literally weighed as much as an actual suit of armor.
Yeah, but I mean, like when you're jousting, you're just on a horse and you point a stick. The Iron Man suit has to like move around. You have to be able to move your joints. That's crazy though. That like, well, I suppose you don't realistically have to move your joints because it's a prop, but that's like that's such a pain to move. Why wouldn't it looked really good, I suppose. So that'll do it. I'm thinking like it could have been made simpler, but I guess not. Otherwise, you would have sacrificed its presentability. Any more fun facts you got, Mr. Tom?
I got one more. ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. They did special effects for this movie, and they were doing research on how to make Iron Man fly and make it believable. And what they base it off of is what they put people in a vertical wind tunnel, and they based all of Iron Man's flying actions off how these people reacted in this vertical wind tunnel. I mean, not people just like they just threw me and you in there, but like professional skydivers in there, and that's how they based it off of. And I thought that was really neat.
Well, you get the nice Iron Man look of like, the arms to the side and using the hands as this sort of like adjustable, just instead of the Superman fists front version.
Right. And knowing that before I watched it again, and you can definitely see that's where they got their inspiration from.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got
for
fun facts.
Well, we definitely do not have time for because of this movie. I think we've actually gone a little overtime today, but that's all right because this is a frickin' fantastic movie, guys. If you haven't seen Iron Man, please watch it. It's awesome.
Refer me to the rock you've been living under.
I have met people who've never seen Iron Man, and I have to just gasp audibly at them. That's all I do. And then I offer my services. I'm like, I have 2 copies. Would you like one to borrow? And would you like me to explain the movie to you word by word? Because I can do that too instead. But this is definitely a top 10, if not top 5, if not top 3 superhero movie that should and needs to be seen by anyone who is even remotely a fan of action films in general. Did we lose Ben?
If you can only see one Iron Man movie, see this one.
Oh, yeah, probably.
I mean?
You didn't lose me. I turned off my camera.
Oh, makes sense. Sorry.
I like the other 2 movies, but I mean, if you can only pick one, watch this one. It is great. I mean, and you can watch Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron and probably Civil War only watching this first movie, and you'd still be okay.
Yeah, that you probably need Thor. Loki's too big. But that'll wrap it up today, I think. So from the superhero, let me start our typical lines of sign-offs. Superhero Movie Club is recorded and produced by Triop Cop Productions, where everyone has a superpower. If you like what you hear, show us your support by rating us on iTunes. It's been a while since we've got a rating, so I'm gonna ask you to say these exact words in your rating. Give us a 5-star, and then say, Iron Man was the first episode I listened to, whether or not that was true, and these guys are the worst people I've met in my life, but dear God, do I love them to death. Word for word, write that with a 5, and we'll read it again. We'll read your name. I don't care. So just rate us on iTunes.
Talking about any episode with us. If you want to keep talking about any episode with us, we encourage discussion on our subreddit, reddit.com/r/superhero movie club. We want to know any fun facts you have on the movie.
We also post our show notes on there so that you know which clips we've used and stuff like that. And we want you to just, like, if we messed up, that's the place to correct us.
SHMC also keeps up an active Twitter feed at SuperheroMC, so follow us and send us your questions, comments, and suggestions, and we'll use them on the air.
So that'll do it today. I'm your host, Michael Maurer.
James Skylar Houtsma.
And Ben Anderson.
And Twitter Tom.
So I hope you all have a super week. Good night, everybody.